thanks to Commander Bowler. He has agreed to speak with us and update us on the status of the investigation. Also, we have our commissioners here from the 2G area that's here representing all of the single member districts. So as Commander Bowler walks to the back, I was getting ready to introduce him, but he's walked to the back of the room. I would like to let you know that he's going to be available to answer some questions, okay? But he is the commander of 3D, and hopefully he won't be here the entire hour fielding questions to the audience. Thank you. I give you Commander Butler.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Do I need to use the microphone or can you hear me? Okay, all right. So my name is James Butler. I am the district commander for the Metropolitan Police Department's 3rd District. As I attend community meetings around the district, numerous meetings every month. This is not one of the ones that I find pleasure in coming to talk to you about. Chief Smith, I don't know if anybody was on Channel 5 and 4 this morning talking about kind of crime and what we're anticipating for a summer. The Metropolitan Police Department right now, if not but for what happened Sunday, especially here in the 3rd District, felt as if we were trending in the right direction. I mean, our crime is starting to trend down across the city and both in the 3rd District. Now, rattling off crime stats, which I could give to you, is kind of a slap in the face if it feels different, right? If you're not feeling a difference in crime, me telling you the crime is down 12% in the 3rd District means nothing. If you come outside every day and see your window smashed or see glass on the ground or get woke up by a noisy club or hear gunfire, right? It feels different sometimes than what maybe the numbers may reflect, right? So I'll start by saying this. When you look at shootings in the 3rd District, we're down assault with a dangerous weapons by 47% compared to this time last year. That's a lot. A 47% reduction in any crime is significant, but for shootings, it's a pretty big accomplishment. That leads me to what happened this past Sunday. Most of you are already familiar with what happened. You've heard it, you watched it on the news, you've heard folks talk about it. But for those of you who haven't, I'll give you a quick rundown of what we know. Sunday at approximately 3:01 a.m., we had an officer driving around the neighborhood in Shaw, heard gunfire erupting from the area of 7th and P Street. This officer was about a block away, enough to hear the rapid gunfire and respond and see several victims lying on the ground bleeding. Other officers, she called for assistance and other officers rushed to the scene. Our officers, prior to the arrival from DC Fire and EMS, began administering life-saving measures, using tourniquets and gauze to stop bleeding of some of the victims. And what we found was that we had 7 victims total that had been struck by gunfire. One of those victims self-responded to a nearby hospital, which left us 6 on the scene that our officers were attending to. 2 of those victims, unfortunately, succumbed to their injuries and were pronounced deceased. The other 4 that were on the scene were transported by DC Fire and EMS to local hospitals where they're all were in stable condition as a result of their injuries. Now, nonetheless, that left us with a pretty significant crime scene. Whenever you have 7 people shot, we occupied, for those who live in the neighborhood, we occupied the intersection pretty much for about 24 hours processing that crime scene. What I can tell you is we believe that the victims all knew each other or were associates of each other in some form or fashion, that they had come from a nearby establishment after a nightclub establishment on 7th Street and were assumably going home. It was 3 in the morning. That's what time this establishment closes. These folks walked approximately 1 block south of it until they reached the intersection of 7th and P Street. That is when we believe a suspect or suspects began shooting at 1 or more victims in this group that were standing on the corner of 7th and P. Now, let me be clear. We have no reason to believe that our victims were hanging out, partying after they were out of the club. I mean, they were literally walking probably to their cars. We released to the media and to the public today an image that was pushed out. These are available in the rear table back in the back of the room. This depicts a black Infiniti with bright headlights that we're looking for. This is a result of some canvassing of closed circuit television that we obtained. We do believe that this vehicle is involved in this heinous act, and we truly do want to find this vehicle in any occupants that may be in it. I would offer that if anybody in the public sees this vehicle or recognizes it, please contact the Metropolitan Police Department at 727-9099, or you can text this information anonymously at 50411. Currently, there's a $25,000 reward per victim that would lead to any closure of this case. In the wake of a crime like this, there's not a whole lot that I can sit here and tell you, other than to offer my condolences to the victims and the families and friends of the folks that were injured, that lost their life. But I can tell you that our homicide division in the Metropolitan Police Department is one of the best in the country. We have a very high closure rate, meaning when people do bad things and people lose their lives, we find them, we identify them, and we hold them accountable for their actions. Our Metropolitan Police Department Homicide Division is working around the clock on this case, as they do every murder case. But our major case squad is really working on this to come to closure. There are many things that are happening right now that I obviously will not discuss relative to the investigation, so that we don't compromise, any of their work that they're doing. But I will tell you, Chief Smith and the men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department will not rest until we bring some closure to the victims' families. In the wake of the shooting itself, there have been some questions about the area nightclubs. Were they responsible for what led up to the shooting? What I can tell you is I don't know. What I do know is right now we have no evidence that suggests that our victims at this time, and this is subject to change, were involved in any type of altercation or physical fight at a nearby establishment or the one they had come from that would have led to this type of violence. Because I cannot tell you what the motive behind somebody wanting to shoot into a crowd or shoot people and kill people, I cannot tell you what led to this. But that'll be something that comes out later down the road when we do identify suspects and are able to take them into custody. For now, members of the community, business owners, I just came from a community walk with local clergy in the 7th P Street area. And what we told them is that you'll feel our presence. I can't tell you how much closer we could have had an officer to be more than a block away from this when it happened. So this is not a case of where was MPD, right? This is a case of somebody being a savage and shooting and killing people, regardless of whether we were there or not. This was going to happen. It's very unfortunate somebody lost their life, and I tell you right now, we will do everything in our power again to bring closure to these families and hold people accountable, but to the community, offer some sense or a semblance of normalcy, right? And if that means increased police presence in the Shaw neighborhood, then that's what we're going to do. I don't have an extra 50 officers to throw in the neighborhood, but what we will do, and my promise to you as members of the Shaw neighborhood, is we will look at our deployment. Chief Smith has offered assistance with other types of units throughout the city to come into the 3rd District to help me with this type of deployment. But we will strategically look at our manpower, and we do anyways, day by day, shift by shift, to determine where the most allocated resources need to go. And I think right now in the wake of this, even though we don't believe this was a random act, so we don't believe that there's an imminent threat to the neighborhood again, right? We think this was a personal attack of one of our victims or more of our victims. We will be in this neighborhood to make sure that we can prevent at all costs something like this from happening again. Also with the police presence, we're not looking for us to come in and occupy your neighborhood. I mentioned I was out with clergy. We expect our clergy members throughout the 3rd District to assist us in, per se, violence interruption, right? Cooling neighborhoods, talking to folks that live within the neighborhood that may not talk to us, that may talk to clergy. And they very often help us in other neighborhoods do that exact same thing. So if you see some of our clergy from different faiths walking around the neighborhoods, know that that's what they're doing. And that's really all I can comment on right now relative to this case. But I'll be glad to answer any questions relative to this before we move forward anyhow. Yes, ma'am.
A couple comments, I think, in a question, and, first and foremost, I'm extremely sorry that, the two people lost their lives, this weekend, and that we had a shooting in the same establishment a year prior. I just wanted to say there is an imminent threat to the neighborhood. That is because, Lady C, it has people congregating in the streets, intoxicated at 3:30 in the morning. And I really feel like this would not have happened had there not been people congregating that late at night. They're not often just walking to their cars. They're hanging out and partying in the streets late at night. So I feel like clergy, violence, interruption, all these things are wonderful methods. But how is that going to help at 3:30 a.m. when everyone's drunk at a nightclub? So my question is, with increased police presence, can we make sure to have RDO officers at Play DC, not just patrolling the neighborhoods, but at that club? Because I mean, that is the source of why this happened, probably. I mean, these were patrons of Play. So my question is, what does that increased police presence look like, and can there be specifically officers at Play?
So let me unpack that, because there's a couple points there. Salient points I'm going to touch on. The increased police presence will be both daytime and nighttime. I don't think it would behoove me just to focus on 3 o'clock in the morning. Right? I think the community needs to see us at all hours after an event like this. And to answer your question about the RDO program, the RDO program is a reimbursable detail officer program that businesses that serve alcohol can engage in at a discounted rate to get officers. The DC government will pay a portion of what would cost to have an officer work at the establishment, outside the establishment, for security purposes. Unfortunately, this is a voluntary program, right? We currently are sitting in 3,300 plus officers, where we need to be around 4,000. And we have a lot of officers across this city that are working extended hours every day. And to get them to then want to work overtime at the nightclubs after they've worked overtime already is very difficult. I will say though, Play BC is one of the ones that has been mandated, one of the establishments that have been mandated to request RDO. So they have and are requesting Wednesday to Sunday reimbursable details. Sometimes we are able to fill it, sometimes we're not. But what one would say is, well, if we can't fill the overtime slot, then we're not just going to take an on-duty officer and make them work it, isn't that gives them no incentive to hire off-duty officers. I don't want to hear it. Right? At the end of the day, we have a duty as a public service agency to protect the public, and if that means we have to put an officer out in the street to keep people out of the street and move them on, then that's what we'll do. Okay, you'll see that this weekend. I can promise you. One thing I would say is this, and one of our local advocates and clergyman himself was out walking with me. He was out last night by himself, walking out in the dark. Noticed that half of the street lights around 6th and P Street near the Kennedy Rec were out. Right, so as an advocate of the neighborhood, and I myself noticed that as well, and put in 311 app request to get those lights fixed. Right, I do believe environmental design plays a big part in security. And what I'm going to do is ask some of these businesses along that corridor to increase their lighting. Right? If you're ever in a restaurant at the end of the night and once you go home, what do? Turn lights on, right? You're in the baseball stadium and the bright lights are shining on you. You don't want to be under them because it's bright and it's uncomfortable. I do believe if we had better lighting outside, right, down on the corner of 7th and P or in the 600 block of P Street, it would have been much more difficult for people who have nefarious intentions to do so if they're under bright light, right? When you cannot hide in the darkness or linger in the shadows of darkness, it's a lot harder to be anonymous, right? And that's what folks committing most crime try to do leading up to their crime, right? So that's one of the things that today I've been working with both DGS and Department of Public Works and DDOT to look at our lighting situation in the immediate neighborhood. That goes not only to lighting, but also cameras. There are quite a few cameras along that corridor. Which is why at this point I can tell you we don't believe anything happened at the nightclub that we're out in front that led to this, right? We do believe that this vehicle that we're looking for was lying in wait in the area of 600 block of P Street that I just described, waiting for these folks to walk down to the corner. That's what that's what we believe at this time. Again, that's the motive of why, I don't know. I can't answer that at this time. But the increased police presence will be both overt, where people can see us, and there may be some covert assets out there too, right? That you and the nefarious actors may not see, right? But the police presence will be across all hours, but definitely focusing on that 3 o'clock hour. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Somewhat. Okay. Yes, sir.
Picking up on, she asked, a bunch of us have been, protesting.
Absolutely.
for quite some time. And
Understandably.
I guess the question is, while this may not be, the qualification may not be a club and then down the street, it has been linked to a number of violent events over the past year. At what point does it reach the threshold of, this is a public safety threat? I mean, there are specific things we can do. I mean, for example, on 6th Street or on Q Street, there are cars parked, people going to that. I know because I live on the street and at 3 a.m. and every night it's on Friday and Saturday night, it's very loud. You have people parking in residential parking for the club who go there, and they're creating all sorts of noise and screaming and yelling. I countless videos of it. Like, what concrete steps can the neighbors take to mitigate this sort of public safety threat that seems to be linked to this establishment?
So I'll say this, one of the things that we are challenged with in the 3rd police district, right? Which, every one of our districts has different challenges and different things going on at any given time in the city. 3rd district is very rich in culture, very rich in nightlife. The U Street corridor, our Cardoza area, Adams Morgan, 9th Street corridor are very, very busy, 7 days a week, right? Until 3, 4, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning, to include ladies, right? So
it's slightly far more residential area than the.
well, I would,
Ladies is not like a legacy establishment.
yes, ma'am.
It's just a few years old.
But I guess my point being is we're having the same challenges of noise, tertiary crime, whether it be theft from autos, loud noise at night, the congregation of Lord in the street afterwards. If anybody's ever tried to drive through U Street or 9th Street at 3 o'clock in the morning, we have to shut traffic down because of the amount of people that are spilling out into the street. And there's a fine balance between protecting public safety and keeping people at bay, right? We can't just lock up everybody because they're in the middle of the street. We've got to have a fine balance between, order, in respect of community and allowing folks to gather, get to their cars and go home. Unfortunately, at 3 in the morning, a lot of people aren't making great decisions after being out all night, which leads to a lot of that loud, disorderly type of behaviors. What I would say about, to unpack your question, going back to the original, what do we do, right? As much as I can tell you that we are a public safety institution that want to make sure you're safe in your community, what you're speaking of, how to stop that establishment, is a regulatory commission answer. I'm, as the district commander, along with police chief Smith. Chief Smith has the authority to shut down an APCA establishment or a DCLP establishment if they pose an imminent threat to public safety because of a specific event that is related to the location, right? So you referenced last year, we shut them down where they then have to request a hearing to be able to open back up. That's what happened. And as part of that, the ABC board, right, went into agreements with them, as you are well aware, where they were supposed to hire RPOs, improve their cameras, improve their lighting, and so forth. I cannot speak for APCA, DCLP, DOB, or any of those establishments, right? So I would really love to see them in the room with us so they can answer those questions for you. Maybe at one of your next meetings, we can invite them because those would be the folks that would have answers to that. Now, if at any time we see opposing of public safety, somebody inside has a gun, we respond for an assault, somebody stabbed or seriously injured, we shut it down. Like there's no question about that, right? Anytime day or night, I will come back in the city and shut it down myself. And I've done it on several occasions along the 9th Street corridor, U Street corridor over the last few years as I was the commander. But barring that, the long-term, and Frank over here, lives in that 9th Street, U Street corridor, so he's very familiar with some of the same challenges you're having. What I would say is, the neighborhood, Westminster Association just recently, brought forth a moratorium for licensing, right? Because the neighborhood doesn't want any more alcohol serving establishments on top of the plethora that are already there because of a lot of the things that you mentioned, right? The parking in our parking spots, the breaking into the cars, right? All the stuff that comes along with a group of people coming to an establishment, right? Especially in a residential neighborhood. Where Frank lives, that's a residential neighborhood on 9th Street. It butts up to the establishments, right? So, I sympathize and I empathize with you. I really do. And I would love to have another conversation with you offline where I can maybe steer you in the direction of some folks you might be able to talk to in some of these different agencies. Maybe you've talked to them already, maybe, but I can definitely connect you with some people offline that might be able to help. And I can tell you, Frank right here is probably a really good resource for you.
So let me interrupt the commander for a second. So the commission, so I'm chair of ANC 2G, Rochelle Nigro. So the commission has a settlement agreement with Play DC. And it's a kind of an agreement between the establishment and the commission about everything from noise to trash. And there's a particular part that I'll read to their settlement agreement that y'all should understand. So talking about Play DC, the establishment shall request a standing MPD RDO detail of at least 2 officers on all nights that the establishment is in operation. In the hour after closing, RDO officers shall patrol the 600 block of Q Street Northwest and the 1500 block of Marion Street Northwest to discourage patrons of the establishment from loitering in the area, consuming alcohol in public, and engaging in loud, disruptive conversations. That said, Commissioner Watkins and I have been in conversation with the establishment today and with their legal, this is a legal document. We will be in a conversation with ABCA also. That's all we can say right now, but it is included in their settlement agreement. So that's right. So that's what we need to find out what happened that night. But as the commander said, they do request that, correct, Commander?
And that's the question I posed to their attorneys today, the operations manager today. The settlement says they should have an RDO between the hours of 3 and 4 during the closing hours. And I posed to them where the officers available during that time.
So I think there needs to be some sort of step if the officers are not available.
Yes.
What the recourse is, and it can't be.
And that's why we're here as a community, to come up with a solution, because evidently we're not getting the solutions that we need. We as a community have to do this. So that's why we're here, to come up with some ideas. What do we need to do with Play DC or any other establishments in our areas that are creating this type of violence and inconvenience? Well, Ibrahim,
let me just say, this is a powerful document that we signed. So we'll have to see when we reach back out to ABCA and when we hear back from their attorney. We did not hear back from Play DC today. So
if I could real quick, when these settlement agreements are come to fruition, one thing I would say is we're not involved.
No, they're not.
So nobody asks MPD, do you have officers available to work this, right? The standing, box check is, hey, let's make them have an RDO. Okay, and that's great if we had sufficient manpower to volunteer to go work this off-duty assignment, right?
Yeah, I think.
And I think you guys understand what I'm saying, right? If we don't have available manpower, or I'm sorry, or available personnel that are willing to work these after-hour clubs on a voluntary basis, because this is outside employment is what this is, right? And then there has to be something else, whether it's hiring a private security company, licensed security, something has got to be better than nothing, right?
Yes.
But what we can't do is, whether it's ANCs, whether it's ABCA, whether it is rely solely on, oh, you got to hire MPD, you got to hire MPD, you got to hire. Trust me, MPD's trying to hire MPD right now, right?
When we negotiated the settlement.
Right.
Available.
No, right.
On a reliable basis.
So Ibrahim.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ibrahim Mukman. I live a block away,
Yes,
600 block of Q Street. Been there for 41 years.
Yes, sir.
And what's going on now is unacceptable.
It is.
I'm like other people, I'm sad about those people who lost their lives. But my neighbors here can tell you for the last 6 or 8 months, people have been coming down Q Street and Marion Street, breaking multiple car windows, stealing cars and stuff. And we reported that, Commander, to the third district, and nothing has happened. And so it's like what do you call it? A lawless land where, I appreciate that, the fact that somebody can hold up a piece of paper. And I heard the chief and the mayor talking about how crime has gone down in 2024, but you can't prove that by the people who live in our single member district. So my suggestion is, can you, instead of giving somebody a pass saying, oh, I called the number, there's nobody available, so there's nothing I can do. But it's ironic that police can come after somebody's shot. So if they can come after somebody's shot, doesn't it make sense to try and secure the fence before the horse is gone? Is what I'm saying is that whoever came after the people were shot, you could rotate some people. Years ago, we had something called community policing, where we got a chance to know the officers and we got a chance to deal with. They knew who the civic leaders were, and we knew who the police officers were. We've got to say this is unacceptable, and we're going to do something about it. How is it that somebody can go down 600 block of Q Street and break windows in 8 cars, and on Marion Street the same thing, and this is repeated over and over again? So what I'm saying is that let's have roll call at 6th and Q or 7th and Q or something. Or what I'm saying is, if the criminals can be created, the police have to be creative too, in terms of trying to figure out how we can do that. I feel good. Recently, I've gotten on the subway and see security officers walking through the train. That happened, I think, because people complained and said that they weren't going to ride the subway because of all the crime on there. So what I'm saying is that we've got to think outside the box. And we got all these people in here, and let's think of, I'm sick and tired of going to, with Fannie Lou Hamer said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, going to meetings and everybody's standing up and talking about ain't it awful. We got to move beyond ain't it awful and come up with some solutions.
Thank you.
So thank you for your comments. Now, I want to say this. I opened by saying I wasn't going to sit here and read you crime statistics, because even though crime may be decreasing in the 3rd district by 12% from this time last year, you don't feel it.
That's right.
So I predicated with that. I get it, right? And you talked about theft from auto. When you look at the year to date, last year, from January 1 to today, we had 410 theft from autos, where people broke windows and stole stuff out of cars. This year, so far, we have a 34% reduction in theft from autos. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because my officers are out there locking people up for theft from auto. The problem is, that is one of those crimes where when 3 or 4 young men, it used to be if someone broke into your car, you thought it was somebody that was unhoused trying to get some change out of here. That's not it anymore, right? People breaking in a car, these are professional car break-in thieves, right? These are young men that may be out doing robberies on a Thursday, decide on a Friday, we're going to go break into a bunch of cars and steal stuff, right? And we have made numerous arrests in the 3rd district, many of them juveniles, right? That once we put handcuffs on people, we're kind of out of the loop as to what happens to that person in the cog of the criminal justice system. So whether it's a first-time offender or a 5-time offender, we're arresting them, some of them over and over, for some of these same type of crimes, right? When you look at theft from autos this year, we're sitting at 269. That's 269 windows that were broke and stuff stolen out of cars. It's unacceptable. You're absolutely right. But what you're experiencing, and I'm not saying this to negate what you're feeling in your block, everybody across this city is feeling that in their block. Not everybody has to be robbed to feel the fear of robbery, right? But when the proximity of the pain is close to you, and you're coming outside and seeing glass in your street every day, right? You're seeing people standing on the corner hustling every day, or you're seeing a neighbor or one of your neighbor's car get stolen, sometimes multiple times, that feels hopeless, right? Because it feels like something that should be able to be fixed easily. If I had more officers, I'd be able to spread more officers out into more locations to get out of the car and be that community officer you're speaking of. Right now, our deployment, we have so many different ways we deploy to neighborhood, but because we have a reduced workforce, I can't put cops in neighborhoods solely on foot because they have to be able to go from North Capitol Street to Connecticut Avenue, right? They have to go from Mount Pleasant to the convention center, and they can't do that judiciously if they're on foot. So what we do in the third district and what many commanders do across the city is we have our officers conducting 15-minute foot beats once an hour on the hour, right? In different neighborhoods. You asked why couldn't an officer be driving around preventing crime before the crime happened? That's exactly what was happening. The officer that was patrolling that neighborhood was a block and a half, less than a block and a half away when it happened. It just driven down the street a few minutes prior, right? They were patrolling PSA 308, which encompasses everything from Florida Avenue, or I'm sorry, not Florida Avenue, everything from the Rhode Island Avenue area, kind of south, right? That officer, that's their assigned area, and they've been out there all night. So I hesitate to think that my officers weren't doing what they were supposed to do. These 7 individuals that were shot, 2 lost their life, however tragic, not because MPD messed up or MPD wasn't doing their job. It's because somebody was a savage or somebody's and decided they were going to shoot and hurt people in society that should not be accepted or tolerated, right? And when we do come to conclusion and we put handcuffs on people because of this, I encourage everybody in this room to follow these cases to make sure that the rest of the criminal justice system is holding these people accountable, right? Whether it's releasing people back into community pending trial, whether it's holding them pending their trial, whether it's convictions and then what their sentencing looks like after their trial, or even their conditions of release when they get released from prison, right? All of those consequences have to mean something, right? People commit crime for many different reasons, right? But the less consequences, the easier it is to make that decision to commit that crime. So I agree with you 100%, sir. I would love one of my favorite things to do is to get out of my car and walk, right? 1, it helps me exercise. 2, it gets me in the community. And for those of you that know me, that's what that we do. Just prior to this meeting, as I mentioned, I was with some clergy for about an hour, walking the neighborhood, speaking to people, handing out flyers. That's what we do, right? But you're right? There are things that we can try to do better, right? There's things that we can improve upon. I want you to know your police officers, right? In the back of the room, there's a contact sheet with my information on it, but more so every PSA manager and lieutenant that we have on the police department in the 3rd district. It's got their name, where they work, what area they're responsible for. And I made it easy. I even put QR codes on there you can scan and download right into your phone, right? So you don't even have to save the information, it saves it for you, right? Every one of you should know who your PSA lieutenant is, right? Years ago, that was your point of contact. If you needed something from police, yeah, you could call the police chief or you could call the commander, but your PSA lieutenant was your go-to person. Right?
Let me just say, part of,
Yes,
I struggled through the crack epidemic
Yeah.
and everything else from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, whatever.
Sure.
And what we need is your help and collaboration with the other agencies that you just talked
Absolutely.
about. It's easy for you to sit here, and I'm not suggesting that it's wrong
Sure.
to say what happens after we arrest, because it doesn't solve the problem. We need convictions.
Mhm.
And if the U.S. attorney or someone else, sees Sosa or the judges are failing to do that, let's get everybody in the room. So there's no finger pointing, and then we can talk about we can attack the problem and not each other. Because I'm simply saying, I went through Rayfield, Edmond, and all that other stuff, and we solved that. We cleaned up the neighborhood. And we've just got to get all of these people engaged, and we just can't come out when someone is killed.
Right.
After the cameras leave, we have to still go do the grind and the hard work to make this neighborhood safe.
Thank you, sir.
We do have someone here from the Office of the Attorney General.
So
He's here now, so maybe
maybe let him come
yeah.
up.
maybe he should come up and speak.
So one thing I would say in the aftermath of anarchy, or in the aftermath of a tragic event that occurred Sunday, there's frustration, there's anger, and it's very much necessary, right? Community should be angry. Every one of us should be angry, right? That should not be tolerable in our society that it's okay to do that, right? But the blame is on the person that pulled this trigger, or the person, right? It's on the fact that we have an immeasurable amount of legal firearms in the city right? That should be a city that should be safe, right? For many years, we had some of the toughest gun laws in the nation, right? But we still have the problem that our youth think it's okay to walk around at the age of 13, 14, and 15 and older with pistols and AR-15s and assault rifles and mini Dracos and all the other things you can look up on the internet that are just crazy, right? It has become so acceptable and tolerable. I'm sorry, and I'll say it. Every one of these 13-year-old, 14, 15, 16-year-old have a mom, a dad, an aunt, uncle, grandma, granddad that know that they're out doing something they shouldn't be doing, right? Just today at 9 a.m. in the 3rd District, we had a carjacking of a young man that should have been in school, right? But then drove up into the 4th District, got in an accident, and got caught with a pistol, right? As a juvenile in a carjacked vehicle, right? So what will be the consequences for that, right? So that's what we got to look at, right? And I'm not, and I agree, right? We should be pointing fingers. And the agencies I mentioned, we work with them every single day, right? The Metropolitan Police Department, we try to stay as neutral as we possible and do our job with the assistance of the outside, the plethora of government agencies that are available, to the citizenry of the District of Columbia. And we have a good working relationship, right? The whole U Street corridor, the Nightlight Task Force was built under the premise of we're stronger together, right? Like all of us come together and do something together. And you're right, there are other agencies that need to be sitting at the table to help solve this problem, right? Of gun violence and youth violence. That's where a lot of this is stemming from, right? Frank?
I'd like to say there's nothing more assuring than your service as commander for 3rd District and in Ward 1. I live 2 blocks up in Ward 1.
Sure.
There's no better service to our district and from your leadership. I thank you, and I mean that. I don't say that. I'm a critic of most people and most institutions. So thank you. Secondly, I'd like to know, it's unacceptable. ABCA has failed on the RDO program. It's been known for too long, and just 2 months ago, the end of January, the ABCA director stood in front of the ABCA board in front of Council Member McDuffie, chair oversight of ABCA, and they all rubbed each other's backs about how well the RDO program is. They're all very clueless, and I don't know how that happens. That's a big problem. We're supposed to have between 2 and 6 RDO officers in the 1900 block of 9th Street every night of the week. 2 during the week, 6 on the weekends. We have 0 or 1. Mostly 0. Unacceptable. They've known about this for 2 years. So I'm asking you, Commander, please, after this meeting, as a to-do request, please ensure that the chief can do something about this, because the woman who manages this, and it's partially managed out of the headquarters downtown, and Musali get this fixed today. Yesterday. It's unacceptable. It's been going on for 2 years, well known about. Thank you.
I just want to
Yes,
add on to that. It sounds like with this program, the language sounded to me like it said that they would request the officer support and then they can stay open. So if the language says all they have to do is request it, 1, you could make an anemic request and never follow up and you're in compliance with something, but 2, you can still open up. So if we have an officer shortage in this city and we can't support the baseline level of policing that needs to be happening in this city, and then there are these voluntary agreements to stay in business for businesses that are a threat to our communities, but they can then move forward by being in compliance with something because the language is written in such a way that they don't have to make it happen, they just have to ask for it. That's a real issue that we need to be looking at. And I don't think that that's necessarily for you. I think it's for people who have not shown up from other offices today that really need to be part of this conversation.
Yes.
So let me say this first of all, because I don't want fear mongering to leave this room thinking, Metropolitan Police Department's falling apart.
And I
Can't hire,
mean
right?
that.
No. I know you didn't. I could read that, right? But what I will say is Chief Conti and now Chief Smith have done a phenomenal job flipping this around. Okay. I just recently participated in an executive leadership program in Chicago where I got to sit over a course of 6 months, a couple weekends here and there with other leaders, district commanders from all over the country, 26 different major law enforcement agencies. And every single one of them is seeing and feeling these same attrition and same recruitment problems that we're having in the District of Columbia, right? I'll say this, yes, we're struggling to get our numbers back to where we want them, right? Because you got to remember, we went through a period where we didn't hire anybody for a year, and it takes almost a year to get an officer trained and on the street. So that's almost 2 years of void where we allowed attrition to take over, right, without backfilling. So now we're at a point where we're hiring, we're putting people through the academy. 2 weeks, I'm going to another recruit graduation. We're starting to get back to once a month, get people back out in the street. But it's going to take some time, right? You can't undo that. That 1 year is going to cost us several years to try to make up for, right? So it is a slow burn to get back to where we need to be. And that's why I mentioned earlier, whether it's policy change, whether it's legislative change, the RDO program, I think it definitely is significant to look at the parameters and requirements of the program to see if it's something legislative that we can change so that they can hire security companies and still reap the benefits as a business to fall under the RDO program versus hiring a company outright and having to pay, whatever their rate would be, right? I think there's something to that. And I've brought that to the attention of many ANCs, as well as some of our council members as well, right? So I know there is somebody looking at that, right? I would ask you and encourage you as the residents of 3D to push that message, right? Help amplify that message because something like that would benefit us, right? If we don't have the officers available, trust me, I've been a police officer for 25 years. There's been times where I didn't think I went home in a week. I worked so much overtime, right? That's not fun. And I'll be honest with you, you don't want somebody doing this job that has worked for 23 hours, goes home and sleeps for 3 hours to come right back to work. This isn't one of those jobs that you can do that, right? We've got to keep our officers well rested, well regarded so that they come to work and make life and liberty decisions that are constitutional, respectful, and professional in the way we want them to be, right? So we've got to be cautious about that. And that's where I find it difficult sometimes as a district commander. I can't make people in the 18th hour of their job say, okay, now go down to play and work another 6 hours standing out in front of the phone, right? But what I can do is the same way we address crime on U Street. If I don't have RDOs on U Street, you know who's down there? On-duty police officers, right? Because I can't allow 500 people to spawn to the street and just figure it out on their own, right? Because at 3 in the morning, they're not making good decisions and they're not going to do the right thing. So, as the warm weather hits, we're expecting, our visitors of the 3rd district are going to increase at night, right? As we start looking at warmer weather, we're going to see bar crawls and, ABC establishments, home promotions. And a lot of people are attracted to the 3rd district because of our nightlife. And it's wonderful. It's vibrant. If you get to enjoy it, it's great, right? It's when it goes bad that we don't like. And we try to do everything we can. We have a nightlife unit strictly dedicated to nightlife. But that is a unit that covers both Adams Morgan, the U Street corridor, and 9th Street, right? As well as Watkins Alley and some of these other one-off establishments like Play. What I'll say is what I mentioned to you is I will use that unit, right? That works 8 at night till ungodly 5 o'clock in the morning, right? To help cover Play DC. Until we can find a solution to the RDO program, right? We're going to have to make sure that we got somebody out there making sure these people move on, right?
Who has the nightlife unit?
That's me, sir.
Oh, okay.
That's me.
So you're gonna ensure that somebody is going to be in that area between 8 and
No.
whatever those officers.
No, ma'am. I cannot promise you I'm gonna have an officer stationed at Play DC from 8 at night till 4.
Not that, I didn't mean to say that, those who work during those hours.
Yes,
You'll have somebody.
We will include Play as one of our establishments that we patrol as a nightlife team.
Yeah,
Yes.
because I heard you say U Street, Adams Morgan,
Yep. Blagden Alley.
Blagden Alley, but I
You
didn't
name it.
hear you say Play DC.
So
That's why I'm asking this question.
So that was I was just
Yeah.
I was predicating these are the areas that this team covers.
Yeah.
We will extend them down to Play. So
Okay.
they'll
We
rotate
appreciate
they'll
that.
rotate in and out through what they do is they patrol all the establishments, right? Their presence is going to be heavily felt on U Street and 9th Street because that's where the majority of folks in nightlife congregate. But the off locations, the one-offs, the plays, the Blagden alleys, we still patrol those, right? So we will make sure that on weekend nights that we have people patrolling Play at 3 o'clock in the morning as we lead up to 3 o'clock where they let out. We know that that's a problematic time for you. we'll make sure that we have some officers in the area prior to that let out so that we can escort those people and try to convince them nicely to go home.
And I really appreciate Commander Butler being here. And of course, he's been here a lot longer than I had anticipated. And I appreciate him answering the questions. But I don't want to hold him up any longer because I know he have to get back to, but if you want to, I mean, it's fine.
For anybody else,
Any
that has
other
questions, they
questions?
need to ask the question. I'm not gonna leave until I answer.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All
yeah,
right.
thank you, first of all, thank you all for taking this time. I really
Sure.
appreciate it. So I wondered if we could zoom out a little to kind of get your sense of how things are going in the neighborhood in a slightly broader sense. While I'm not a fan of ADC, it is also not the only incident the past year. Like I read in the papers today that the killing of the shooting incident south of the rec center from last September is still unresolved.
Yep.
I know that, I'm happy to see that the rec center has closed its parking lot, because that used to be full day in, day out with their license plates and sort of drug market going on there. There's been a shooting involved with that. I feel like, there are other problems going on in the cruise, I know that. So anyway, I just wanted to know what your sense was of some of those other issues and whether we could do something like, since the rec center belongs to the city, could you put like cameras on all four corners of the blocks to get, better sight lines on all of this activity?
So I'll say this, and I'm gonna answer it a couple different ways. Chief Smith just recently implemented and created a real-time crime center that the Metropolitan Police Department did not have prior to her taking appointment. Many large cities, think New York, Chicago, LA, Atlanta, have very similar crime centers that the police department uses as an asset to get ahead of crime or to react much quicker in those very valuable minutes after a crime occurs to try to apprehend people. That's tapping into crime cameras, LPR, tag readers, dissemination of information across bordering agencies, right? This is a room, and Chief Smith did a press conference not too long ago announcing it. I know there's gonna be a rollout here soon when it's fully operational. But she spoke about it today on the news. And we've already started staffing it and utilizing it today. That's how we track that carjacking vehicle up to 4D, right? It was technology. So yes, the use of technology such as cameras is very important to us. The Chief Smith has been very adamant. I haven't seen a push like this to get more MPD crime cameras into the neighborhoods like we are now in my 23 years, right? I mean, we are really pushing. The second we get them from a vendor, they're going up, right? We're notifying council members and ANCs and they're going up. We have in excess of 300 plus MPD crime cameras across our city, right? If you travel to other cities and even some countries, you go to London, they're on every corner, right? I think there's an advantage to that. However, they also don't have the ACLU and they don't have, the civic rights that we have here in the United States that we have to, look at when it comes to where we're placing cameras. What I would say is in a time where, my apologies, I should have turned this off well ahead of time. In a time where we are having attrition issues and we're trying to hire more people, I think cameras are a good alternative for that until we can get to where we need to go, because that technology helps us solve crime. Right? And in some instances, the presence of the cameras do deter crime. There are some folks that could care less and will stand right underneath of a camera and do shooting. But there are some, and it's kind of hard to measure what you don't know, but there are some people, we know this because we do interviews of folks that we arrest that say, hey, I saw the camera and I kept on moving, right? Something as simple as package stuff. Some people, you'll see them walk up to a house, they look right in the Ring camera and then they go next door to steal their package because they don't want to get caught on camera, right? So there is a presence of deterrence to some point. But to answer your question about the rec center, so the rec center at Kennedy Rec Center is currently under renovations, which is why it's clear. I don't know what their long-term plan is to not open that parking lot back up. I would love to see it not open because that's a bane of my existence in the summertime when there's 30 cars in that parking lot and the hoods are up, and the trunks are up, and everybody's out there having fun, right? That never leads to good stuff, right? So You know, the rec centers are a big part of both the Mayor Bowser and Chief Smith's plan for this summer. We're really leaning on partnering with DPR to offer healthy alternative choices for youth. And that's what we want to have a environment where they can thrive and not be jaded by stuff that you're talking about. So as we move toward the warmer months and we see Kennedy Rec open back up, that's going to be one of my priorities as a district commander, is to make sure that we're looking at almost as a drug-free zone, right? Where we want people not drinking and not loitering, you know, although I can't enforce loitering, right? I don't want people there that aren't there to enjoy the amenities of the rec center. So if you're there for any other purpose, at minimum, we're gonna make you uncomfortable and ask you to. So
That's, the rec center is a great asset.
it absolutely does.
But it's like, it's like, this case and then the case in September, it seems like, you know, there was a car of perpetrators literally right next to the rec center, firing and killing people.
So
And, you know.
So in both instances, we did recover video, right? And we recovered crime camera video that we're using in both cases. The case you're speaking of is when two young ladies lost their lives on 8th Street, across from the Giant down behind the church. That case is still active. I can tell you that there's progress has been made on it, but it's an active investigation that I cannot comment. But I can tell you, as I stated earlier, we have some of the best homicide detectives in this nation. I feel the justice will be done. Okay. The crime cameras, yes, the Kennedy Rec Center does have crime cameras on all 4 corners of their building. One thing we are asking DPR is to invest much more heavily in their camera systems, both on the buildings and in the park itself. So hopefully they'll do so. Somebody else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I live near the soccer field.
Yes.
I had 24 balls I had confiscated. They tore down my fence so many times. It's broke now. Anybody can come into my backyard. I've had it fixed so many times. I've called the mayor's office. They have no facilities. They're using the alley. They're drinking all night long, playing soccer. The lights supposed to go out at a certain time. They're on. And I'm sick and tired of it. Sick and tired of it. And I told them, I called the police and they said, get a higher fence. That's what they told me.
Commander.
One of them told me the ball, I was in the alley, cleaning the alley, and the ball almost hit me. And the guy came from the soccer field and said, give me the ball. I said, no, it almost hit me. He said, you don't own this alley. I'm getting tired of being cursed out. I put a sign, do not.
Here's what I ask you to do, okay? Grab one of these contact sheets and next time that happens, you call me, okay?
So Commander,
I've called him so many times.
No, you
The
call.
police come at night and he said they done messed my doorbell up,
Okay, you
ringing my doorbell.
call,
I'm tired.
call me directly, okay?
you're talking about Bundy Field, right?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm tired.
so
You
I'm on
were in my yard. My gate is open there. I'm scared. Who's gonna come and break in my house?
So the commander might not be aware, there is a current dialogue going on with HIP and Department of General Services and DPR, and it has been going on a long time. And so where there is supposed to be a higher fence put up, I'll have to get back to you about that, okay? Did you want to say something about? Yeah, oh, go ahead. Yeah, so what's the current about the fence? Yeah, come on up.
I invited Dr. Patterson here from KIP to address this.
That was perfect time.
All right.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Thank you guys first and foremost for having me. I'm Dr. Patterson. I also serve on the State Board of Education as well. I have 2 capacities, but Bundy Field in particular, I know it is the bane of existence for so many people, okay? That is a very, very bad contract, and as your chair has said, when we entered into it 11 years ago, we're a school that operates from in the morning till about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The way they wrote that contract is that we're responsible regardless of what time. What we have proposed, because it actually is owned by the school system. We thought it was DPR, but it's actually DCPS, okay? So what we are proposing with your support is we need to renegotiate that contract first and foremost, because every time a ball goes into, your yard or anybody else's yard, everybody goes like this and they start pointing fingers, and Kip is supposed to come out and fix the problem and everything like that. So we're trying to fix the problem, but the immediate response that we're gonna do is we're putting up netting. It's gonna be higher. It's costing us $50,000. It will start this summer, okay? Because we know that's when everybody, we cannot stop people from cutting chains. They have cut the chains. We're putting new chains on there, okay? They do not listen to, like, you got to get a permit to use the field. They don't care. They go in regardless. So we're getting calls, Kip, me personally, because it's my job, all times of the night, all weekends. I can't go to Sunday service because that's when everybody's out playing the games and stuff like that. But I promise you, we're going to put the netting up first, and then we're going to try to renegotiate it so that DPR is the right place to service it. And I've had some conversations with their director Freeman, Dean Freeman, to see if we can push that along. But it's going to take you guys supporting that letter, because right now it works for DPR, because every time somebody calls them, DPR is like, it ain't our fault. They'll basically tell you, call Kip, call, and I know Pinto's office is here too, because we've talked and we've had conversation, and they're trying to respond to it. It belongs in DPR's inventory. We're trying to get it there. DPR likes it the way it is because they don't have to take any responsibility. But with your support, what I need from this commission,
Thank you.
since I was a commissioner, I'm from Ward 8.
Yeah.
So I was there for 10 years. What we need from you guys is a letter of support to push them along and say, this is what we want done, and we will not accept anything less than that. So that's what I can give you right now, but those netting will be put in place. Who will? I don't know if we fixing fences.
Dr. Pat.
But I will get that netting up and everything like that. Ma'am, I know there's a lot going on over there. That's why it should be DPR, because DPR can handle that.
Nobody comes out to see me.
They don't feel like they have to come.
Yeah.
They do not feel like they have to come.
But I invited Dr. Patterson and he showed up.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And I appreciate you showing up and
And so
talking to them.
I'm gonna do
about
this to
what's
take the
going
little
on.
pressure off of you guys as well. I'm a person, I've been in ANC, so I know what it's like. I'll give you my number, okay? So if you have a pen, yeah.
You ain't gonna come out and say
Yes,
something.
I've been at ANC. I will drive across town, ma'am. I won't make you, he's giving you his number for when they act and it starts to be criminally. I'll give you my number to be, as much in support as I can. So for those who have their pen out or whatever the case may be, are you recording it?
Yes.
202-834-2553. It is that phone right there, okay? I have one request, and I say this in every single meeting. My wife gets mad at me if I get calls after 10, but I still will answer, okay?
We'll get to you, Judy, okay?
Thank you,
We'll get you his
Judy.
number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
If I catch one of them in my yard and I do something to them, that's the.
so one thing I want to leave you with, and again, I'll stay and answer any questions that may still be remaining, but one thing I want to do, Frank kind of mentioned it when he mentioned me, but I want to give due credit where it deserves. Mayor Bowser and Councilwoman Pinto really have done us a service as an agency, the Metropolitan Police Department and the citizens of DC with Secure DC. Whether you agree with everything in it or not, I can tell you that it is a step in the right direction. It empowers the Metropolitan Police Department to do what we need to do to make the city safer. So, again, I just applaud the mayor and Councilwoman Pinto that has been a turning point in some of my officers' morale, right? Seeing that the citizens of the District of Columbia and that the legislators, in the council, really support them in that fashion. It's hard to do your job when you don't think you have support from those entities, right? And I explain to them every single day in some form or fashion that citizens that live in this city, not only do they expect and deserve 100% of what we have every day as the police department, but respect and appreciate what they do every day. So my ask to you is, yes, hold us accountable when we don't do what we are supposed to do. But use some of that same energy when you see an officer in your neighborhood. You talked about community policing. We got a lot of young cops on the department right now. You'd be surprised what a simple conversation or hello officer, or hey, thank you for what you're doing, that'll turn an officer's day completely around. And honestly, that could be the difference between how many times they get out of the car today and how many times they sit in the car. As they
Yes.
go around, right? So, that's my only ask. Every community meeting I go to, I ask that one simple request. And I do think it makes a difference.
So how many officers do you expect new officers do you expect this year?
I honestly,
Are you anticipating
so,
anyway?
so I wish I could give you an exact number. I'm the district commander of the 3rd district, right? I'm not tracking all the recruitment numbers. We have a deputy chief of police, assistant chief, Culligan that oversees that part of our police department. I can tell you though, we are seeing our numbers increase in hiring events. Our recruiting events that we have more people coming to them. We have numerous folks in the queue ready to enter the police academy next class. And as I stated, in 2 weeks, we have an academy class graduating with, I want to say, around 25 new officers. In addition, we continue to hire and bolster our cadet program. If you have any young men or women in this city that are DC residents that want a good job with a paid education and part-time work while they go through school, our cadet program is one of the best in the country. And to be able to hire young men and women from community who serve the same community, I don't know what better tool we could use to really get impactful people in these positions. So if you have family, friends, neighbors, come across some youth, point them in our direction. We definitely we'll take.
Thank you. Any other
Did
questions?
I catch everybody's questions? Anybody else?
One of my neighbors has said that someone told her, you can clarify this, that MPD can't use the cameras that many of us have on our houses. Is that true or not true?
So we can use them if you volunteer them to us.
Okay.
So what the mayor's camera rebate program did for our city, or even you as a private citizen going out and buying your own camera, you have a constitutional right to privacy, right? So it's your camera, right? Even if you bought it through the camera rebate program, you still as a citizen have to be willing to provide that information for it. I can tell you right now that the private rebate, the camera rebate program and the private CCTV cameras that are through the senior program have been instrumental in solving cases. Everything from package theft to murder.
Can you say that again? You said it's been
They have been
instrumental.
instrumental in solving crime. Absolutely.
So we're talking about solutions tonight. That's one of the things that
Yes.
you get more people with cameras.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carol. I'd like to clarify that because I think there are a couple of folks in this room who shared with me that they had some footage on their private camera
Yes, ma'am.
of a break-in to the car,
Okay.
and they shared it with MPD, and MPD said they can't use it. Now, if anyone would like to speak to that, because people have told me that personally, a few people have told me that. I don't have a camera myself, but
So
curious.
let me start with this. I've got over 300 some plus officers that work for me and professional staff just at the 3rd district. Not every one of them get it right every time. Okay. Which is why today I handed out the contact sheet with all my PSA lieutenants and my info, along with my captains. I will never turn down potential evidence of any crime, right? What I can tell you is, we have a reporting system, right? That's tied to what we call complaint numbers, right? That when a crime occurs, we obtain this tracking number that we then utilize to attach to any type of evidence such as camera footage to be able to upload so we can save it and it's categorized where detectives can then view it according to the reported crime. In many cases, what we have is a citizen will come forward and say, hey, I've got this video of somebody breaking into a car, but then the person who owns the car came back from the club, got in the car and drove home. And we don't have a victim at that moment, right? Doesn't mean we should be turning you away, right? Because that victim may decide to report her crime, his or her crime tomorrow, and then that evidence would be helpful in that, right? Not to mention, there are many things that we investigate where we don't have a victim, right? That we can eventually lead to, a culmination of an arrest. So I would ask you this, if you or any of your neighbors are experiencing that, kindly thank the officer, get their name, and call me, right? And I'll deal with that because we have the capability of recovering your evidence and storing it. Yes, sir.
So what you're talking about, where if the person whose car was broken into doesn't necessarily call the police, is that something that the council would be able to change with Security C 2.0, where if someone does have video footage of someone breaking into a vehicle, then that does open a case as opposed to just a complaint number?
So understand this, right? If a victim of a crime decides they do not want the Metropolitan Police Department's assistance and does not report a crime, it is going to be very difficult to convince the United States Attorney's Office and the Attorney General, for that matter, prosecute somebody that has a victim that doesn't want to report their crime.
Sure, I guess what I mean is, could you open the case, contact the individual whose car was broken into?
We do that quite often, yes. Yep. I mean, our officers, I'm sorry,
Okay.
our officers on a daily basis, every single day, are driving around when the sun starts to come up and notices vehicles where we run tags and have to notify you of the car got broken into overnight, right? And many times, I'd say most of the time, our folks that are victim of that will say, oh, absolutely, I'm gonna take a report. And we guide you through that, right? Where we do have instances of, I don't want to say non-compliance, but folks that just aren't interested. Sometimes we have folks that have been out all night enjoying the nightlife. They come back to the car, they live somewhere else, like they get in the car and they drive away. Right? We've had that happen. So I've been out at 3 a.m. trying to get somebody to let us take a report and they just get in a car and drive away. There's really not a whole lot we can do with that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You made your hand up like 8 times. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
First, thank you, and I want to compliment you on your forthrightness and your clear, responsive answer.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know what was on, like you see, other nightclubs, like, nightclub going days or long past.
You and me both.
Is there any screening for metal detectors? Because it seems odd to me that, I get screened when I go match skating, whether done, and they stop serving alcohol for 7th inning. But you go to a nightclub and you potentially carry a gun and get drinking till 3 in the morning.
They do have.
So just about every nightlife establishment in the 3rd district that I can attest to does some form of weapons abatement prior to coming in, right? Now, the goose is only as good as the gander, right? So if you're an untrained person who doesn't know how to detect a firearm in somebody's waistband and you're doing the pat down and you've never done that before, are you going to detect a firearm that might be concealed in somebody's waistband? I don't know if you will or not, right? We do, as the police department, offer, I don't want to call it training, but we offer advice and tips to our nightlife security teams and bouncers and what the qualifications are to be a bouncer in the District of Columbia. I don't know what that is, right?
Magnetometer and
Many of our establishments use magnetometers. They use the wands. I can say that when a firearm makes it into a nightclub establishment and we find out about it, you move to shut down the establishment on an emergency like basis, right? Until AVCO or DCLP or DOB can have a hearing to determine, are they doing the right things to make sure that doesn't make it inside. I will say every weekend, now the nightlife team that I spoke of, that consists of a lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and about 16 officers responsible for all those nightclubs. It's a lot of nightclubs that you saw. But what these officers do is they individually form relationships with these front door staff to the point where every single weekend we usually net 2 to 3 firearms off people illegally because our bouncers or our door staffs are saying, hey, officer, guy sitting down there in a white shirt, blue pants, shiny shoes, got a gun in his waistband, right? Because they detect it and then they turn them away, right? They're not police, they can't lock them up, and I don't want them to. But they're, for the most part, most of these places are notifying us and bringing up to our attention these weapons when they find them. So, and they're not letting them in their bars and clubs for the most part. So,
Thank you.
Commander, we have to.
We really have.
I'm sorry, this is your meeting, not.
I appreciate the questions and if you want to spend some time after the meeting, but we do have to move on with the agenda at hand. And we do have someone here from Councilwoman Pinto's office, Mr. Romanowski here to, if you want to be acknowledged and speak and take a stand on.
Sure, happy to give a quick update. So I'm Brian Romanowski. I work for Councilmember Pinto's office. She's the Ward 2 council member. If you're not familiar with the council history, Councilmember Pinto, I think, was elected in 2020. In 2022, this area became part of Ward 2 again. It was previously in Ward 6. It's every 10 years they do redistricting. She then became chair of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety last year in 2023. And as the commander mentioned, and thank you for mentioning it, the Security C bill just passed earlier this month and was signed into law by the mayor last week, I think on last Monday. So Councilmember Pinto's top priority has been and will continue to be improving public safety. It's not just here in Shaw, it's across the entire district in her role as chair of that committee. She goes to Ward 7 and 8, every single ward. And she's done public safety walks in all of those wards. We had our public safety walk in October. I know many of you in the room were there. And we started at the Kennedy Rec Center and walked around Shaw, specifically knowing that there's been so much violence, especially on O Street and in this exact area. So it's not something that's new to us. We're super aware of it and working hard to address all the issues that MPD has. I mean, I think the budget is a challenge, and we know that MPD needs more officers. So recruitment and retention is always one of our top priorities. And when Chief Smith took over, she said that would be her mission. And when Chief Conti made asks from the council last year, Councilmember Pinto was able to get every dollar that Chief Conti had asked for in order to recruit and retain officers. And that will help with patrols and help with just having more officers available for the RDO program and everything else that we need them for. Security C, which just passed, I have a handout in the back of the room on the table that kind of goes over it, but there's also our website. There's 100 different interventions in the bill. And so this is an omnibus. So it was Councilmember Pinto's bills, as well as combined with some bills from the mayor and other council members. Some of the things that we're hoping will help. So we know that MPD has staffing issues. So the Safe Commercial Corridors grants are supposed to allow for different business corridors. So like Shaw, and we know there's some issues to work out with the funding, but will allow for those business groups to say, hey, there's not necessarily enough MPD officers, so we need to hire private security guards. So this funding hopefully will allow those areas to say, okay, we're going to hire private security in the meantime until we get the numbers that we need at MPD. There's also drug-free zones, which began last week in Chinatown, and you'll see in other areas where it's a 5-day period where the chief of police can declare an area a drug-free zone. It is meant to intervene and hopefully disrupt open-air drug markets that people are seeing. So we know there's some areas in Shaw that might benefit from this. So those are the drug-free zones, and again, the chief of police declares those, and they last for 5 days, and it's kind of a surge in resources from MPD. And also raises the penalties for anyone that is dealing drugs or using drugs in that area. I could go on and on. So pretrial detention, that's something that I think the commander might have mentioned, but this Security C changed the presumption that judges have to use to actually hold people instead of just releasing them. Now you have to give a reason why you're releasing somebody pretrial, because we do hear about people committing crimes over and over again in our communities and causing violence. And then there's also more data on gun tracking, requiring annual firearm tracing reports to reduce the flow of illegal weapons into DC, because we know that's a huge issue. And there's much more that goes into. So I could say more about Security C, but I live in this neighborhood. I live in this ANC, so I'm not a stranger. And I was out there Sunday morning, so I'm certainly very cognizant of what's going on. And my friends walked through the scene as well. So horrifying and horrible, and we know we have our work cut out for us.
Thank you, Brian. All right, we really need to move the agenda along because this is supposed to be a monthly 2GO3 community meeting. I want to give Commander Butler a hand. I'm thankful for attending again and answering our questions. Even for Brian from Pinto's office, as well as the Office of the Attorney General, he was here as well. I did have some additional information that I wanted to share with you. A couple of people had asked me about the 3rd Street Baptist Church and what was going on with that church. We were going to get another new high-rise co-ops in that area, but it's not going to be another new high-rise. It's going to be another church, and it's called the Church of the Event. And the representatives from the church, I invited them to come here and just speak to you and speak to the community. You want to step up? Thank you. This is what this community meeting was supposed to be about. Us working together as a community, trying to make our community safe and vibrant and interacting with each other.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, amen. Thank you very much. So no, we'll just say, hey, really quickly, we know it's been a long meeting. Obviously, a lot that we can be praying for, certainly praying for the commander, all the amazing work that's happening. My name is Father Tom Henson, and this is Deborah Tepley. She's our executive director. And we are part of Church of the Advent. We started as a house church about 16 years ago. My wife and I have lived in the district for close to 20 years. But that being said, even though we're not new to DC, we are going to be new to the Shaw neighborhood. We've been moving around for the last 16 years, renting spaces around the city. Started in Columbia Heights, we sort of migrated around, and most recently renting in Tacoma Park, but really had been looking for years and praying and hoping that we could come into a space and really root down. One of the commitments that we have as a church is really being the kind of church that is committed to loving and serving the city. And there's a lot of things that we want to do that we can do having a permanent space. And one of the other hopes that we had was that if we were able to find a church, that it would be an arrangement that would really be a blessing to the selling church as well as to us as the buyers. And we sort of feel like we've been led to Third Baptist. We have established an amazing relationship with Pastor Harris, Deacon Curtis. We know that over the last several years, they've been in discernment about what to do with the building. And Deacon Curtis, the one we've probably gotten closest to, it was his heart that this church and the incredible legacy of Third Baptist, their incredible sort of the incredible history of that church, doing amazing work in the community, that legacy would be able to be continued. And so we're excited and honored, honestly, to be able to move into this space, to be able to continue to tell the story of the church, its incredible history, to be able to restore, hopefully, what we consider to be a beautiful space. And then excited to learn, honestly, from you all, from people in the community, how we might be able to bless and serve people in the Shaw neighborhood. So we're thrilled to be here. We're really grateful to you for giving us an opportunity just to say hello. We're not going to be moving in for another year and a half. We're going to be doing construction and then kind of updating and things like that. And if you're worried about parking, something that you can pray for is we are hoping and praying to work out an arrangement with KIP. They're right across the street. The previous church had a great arrangement with them, and so we hope to continue that.
We don't have to worry about our parking space.
Yeah, we don't know. Parking's a big deal. We get
Yeah, I
it.
know.
Anyway,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thanks
We
so much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Questions?
Any
Anything else?
questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you planning to, try to designate the church as, an individual landmark so you can try to access some of the funding that's available to restore church?
Absolutely. Well, it's on the National Historic Registry. And so that does open up some options. And we have a grants committee that is working hard at that right now. I don't know if you want to say.
Yeah,
more
we have a
about
grants committee that's working, but if you have other grants that you're aware of that you can let me know about, we appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm with Shaw Main Streets with a historic preservation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
So we have to-
Yeah, I would love
that
that.
would be
That'd
great.
yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
All right.
How do we reach you?
Well, our website, you were kind enough to put that in the newsletter.
Yeah, I
So you
did put
can
it in the newsletter. Yeah.
get in touch with all of us through the website. It's
Yes.
probably the easiest thing to say. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of our email addresses are on our team page. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other
Hey,
questions?
What's the website?
It's adventdc.org.
It's in the newsletter.
Yeah,
adventdc.org.
.org.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
All
Thank
right.
you. Any other questions? All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And if y'all notice, the next on the agenda is we got some community activities. What I'm proposing is us as a community get together and host or have some type of community events. And as you see there, I have a spring cleanup as well as a spring yard sale or community yard sale. And I'm trying to coordinate those efforts with the spring cleanup. I believe one person has agreed to coordinate those efforts. Carl, are you still here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I told you out. I know it. Yeah, the spring cleanup. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on up here, girl, so you can let them know.
So if I've learned one thing about living in this neighborhood, it's, you gotta get to know your neighbors and make things safer. And so I just wanted to offer up, something kind of simple, a simple lift that we could get together and do a cleanup. I'm willing to coordinate it. Anybody who wants to sign up and help with that, the details are to come, but we could do it on a weekend, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, whatever works for folks. I'll figure it out, you know,
There's
yeah.
a sign up sheet up front. If you want to be participate in the spring cleanup, you can check one of the boxes on the sign up sheet.
Yep.
I'm looking for somebody to coordinate a yard sale. I figure a community yard sale. I got a lot of stuff in my place that I can set out for a yard sale. And I'm wondering if other people would be interested in doing the same thing. We could pick a Saturday and we could map around the different areas of different homes that are having yard sales. If you're interested in that, you can also sign up, put a check mark in on the sign up sheet. And I'll start with that coordination unless somebody else would like to do it. Don't everybody raise their hand at one time or stand up at one time. But these are some of the things that I believe that we can get to know our neighbors, get to know each other, and generate some more camaraderie with the neighborhood. Yeah, I mean, I think the more we get to know our neighbors, the more vibrant, safer, and better our community is. So please sign up if you want to participate in any of these activities. Even if you come up with some ideas. We won't be meeting next month. We're not able to meet here next month, but we will be meeting in May. But if you sign up for the cleanup or the yard sale, we will definitely get in touch with you. Anybody else have any other ideas, any other concerns that they need to address at this meeting? No questions? Oh, no more concerns? That's, go ahead. I knew you. Go ahead, Hebrew.
I guess this was the meeting already scheduled before we had the tragedy this past weekend, but Rachel, since you were the chair, one of the things that I wanted to advocate is something that I mentioned in the discussion with the commander, is that we've got to have a forum where we bring together all the people involved with public safety, you know, both the police department and the judges, the U.S. attorney, and the district attorney, I guess. And so it just seems like to me the natural place for that to be housed would be the ANC. And so I'd like to encourage you all to do that. I'd be happy to assist.
Okay.
You know, with that. It was something that's been done before, because I wasn't trying to blame the commander, but it's helpful when you have other people who have responsibilities in this thing to be present. It's got to be a collaboration. It can't be just the police alone.
Yep, agree.
Agree.
Okay, I will reach out to you.
Okay.
I know where to go.
Definitely. Anybody else? I'm quite sure you'll probably get a lot of people wanting to be part of this effort too, Ibrahim. All right.
Because what I was saying, you know, before I left home, my wife said, "Okay, be cool now." You kind of grow weary of coming to the meeting and this, you know, and everybody talks about how terrible it is, and then you leave. But when I was, before I retired, my strategy was that instead of looking at all the liabilities in the neighborhood, look at the assets. And we have a lot of assets in this neighborhood, you know, and we have some of the best and brightest people in the country. And so if we start pulling them together and working with the government agencies, you know, and stuff, we can improve it. Otherwise, you know, it's like, you know, we inherit and we keep getting with the same, what's the expression? If you keep doing the same thing over and again, that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ibrahim, would you like to come out of retirement and start adding this up again? That would be awesome. I've asked you a couple of times now. You gotta ask your wife first.
You know, I used to be a player, but now I'm a coach.
I've asked you that. So with that said, if anybody else have any other suggestions or anything that they'd like to discuss, we have about 3 minutes. I definitely believe in meetings ending on time. You had your hand raised back there?
Yeah, my name is Samuel. I'm the owner of Silk Restaurant and Lounge on 9th Street.
You're the owner of what?
Silk Restaurant, Alex Elise, Shiva.
No.
The name's gonna be Silk Lounge Restaurant. So I heard everyone talking about concern with safety and all that kind of stuff. So my suggestion for you guys, have you guys call the owners of the establishment to the meeting? You know, they could be an asset. Everyone like pointing fingers, right? I'm not saying whatever happened is right or wrong, right? We all feel bad about it. I'm sad for the people that lost their lives, but I was telling Alex, you should call the owners.
We did.
We've been in discussion.
We've been
reached out.
in discussion with them. I've sent them emails. I've invited them to this
I would
meeting.
say that, you know, they
Yeah.
contribute, because the RDO, commissioner was saying, most of the time they're not available. They should be
Right.
4,500, but they're less than 4,000. So instead of like calling RDOs, let them hire extra security or patrol companies. And you guys should work into that, cleaning the street and stuff. So that could be, I don't know, just.
I think I'm gonna come up with a few from this meeting, come up with a few ideas that I'd like to present to the commission, to the other commissioners, and see how we can move forward with it instead of just sitting around doing nothing about it, but moving forward with it. We can't place the blame on Play DC, like the commander said, that he doesn't know if they came from that club or not. But as the investigation moves forward, I think we as commissioners need to start thinking about what else we could do.
Yeah, working with them could be.
Yeah,
You know,
yes.
this stuff, but the neighborhoods, cleaning streets, you know.
Yeah.
Hiring extra patrol.
Definitely. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, if there's no more questions or concerns, I guess we can adjourn this meeting. Go ahead, Diane.
So Brenda, I wanted to know, there's a lot of government agencies that, can help. I live in a co-op. Maybe you find our regulations from the government to help us, you know, we have 145 members.
I have spoke with one of our other commissioners, and she gave me some information as to who I should be contacting on the council. And I have an email into him because he's in charge of housing on the council. And so I'm gonna be speaking to him to get some input from him to see how we can move forward. Because, you know, we live in the same co-op. And I'm tired of this rat hole that I'm going through, trying to get information about. I haven't talked to him yet because she just told me this. I think it must have been Monday. Yes, what's today? Tuesday? She told me this on Sunday when we was having a discussion. So I do plan on doing that, speaking to that. And maybe you can even be in on the discussion, Diane, since we've been trying to move forward with the concerns of the shareholders of the co-op, definitely. I'm hoping this will be a step towards trying to resolve some of those concerns, yeah. Thank you, yeah.
Sharanda.
Yes.
Piggyback on Diane said, we've been with the co-op for 44 plus years. The property is paid early. We have no clue what's going on. We have a board of directors that don't communicate with us. There's no transparency nowhere. And we need to know what's going on. We need to find out who regulates sister properties paid. We need to know that. So
yes,
if you could find that information.
Well, you know, I'm a shareholder too. I'm really concerned about it, you know, and like I said, I'm tired of going down this rabbit hole. Unfortunately, Rachel gave me this rabbit hole.
I've lived that rabbit hole
with
many years.
With that rabbit hole for many years. So I'm trying every little resource that somebody give me, and then I got one more resource that I am trying to use. And I've been fighting now since I've been there. You know that. Yeah, before I was the commissioner. Yeah. I know you have too, Judy. Yes, and I appreciate everybody showing up this month. I really do. I just hope y'all will be here in May. And it won't be a discussion about the shooting that took place.
We hope.
Yeah.
We hope it won't be another shooting.
It better not be. Yeah, yeah. Yes.
The date, do you know the date?
Oh, no. It's what's is this the second Tuesday?
Says May 21st.
It's the second Tuesday.
It's on the flyer.
Yeah, it's on the
21st.
flyer.
May 21st.
May 21st.
May 21st. Okay.
And then come to our ANC meeting the second Thursday in April.
Yes.
But don't come, we're zooming.
We're
Zoom in, zoom
zooming.
in,
Please
zoom
show up.
in.
The more people there that are heard, the better. Unity is the key, y'all. Please sign